Have you ever wondered why someone who disappeared from your life for years suddenly returns the moment you finally found peace? Most people believe every reunion is a blessing, but wisdom teaches something different. Not everyone who knocks on your door deserves to be welcomed back into your inner world. Some people don't return because they have changed. They return because you have changed. They sense your growth, your stability, your confidence, and they want access to what they once ignored. Before you reopen an old chapter, there are 5 signs you must recognize. Your peace depends on your ability to see beyond familiar faces. There is something curious about human nature that many people overlook. Often, those who ignored your value while you were struggling become interested only after they see that your life has changed. Perhaps years have passed without a single message, a single call, or even a simple question asking how you were doing. Then suddenly, just as you have found peace within yourself, they appear again. At first, it feels like coincidence. You tell yourself that life is busy, that people drift apart, that everyone deserves another chance. These thoughts sound compassionate, but wisdom asks a different question. Why now? Most people focus on the return itself. They become emotional because the face is familiar and the memories are comforting. But a disciplined mind pays attention to timing. Timing often reveals what words try to hide. When your life was uncertain, your confidence was fragile, and your direction was unclear, they remained distant. They had every opportunity to reach out then, yet they chose silence. Now that you stand taller, speak with confidence, and carry yourself with quiet strength, they suddenly remember your existence. This is not always because they have changed. Sometimes it is because they have noticed that you have changed. People are naturally drawn to strength. Some are inspired by it and sincerely wish to reconnect. Others are attracted to what they believe they can gain from it. These are 2 very different intentions that can look almost identical in the beginning. This is why you should never allow loneliness or nostalgia to make decisions for you. Nostalgia has a gentle voice. It reminds you of laughter, shared experiences, and moments that once felt meaningful, but it rarely reminds you why the relationship disappeared in the first place. Memory edits reality. It preserves the pleasant moments while quietly hiding the painful lessons that forced you to grow. Growth changes more than your circumstances. It changes your energy. People notice when you no longer seek approval. They notice when you stop chasing attention. They notice when your life becomes stable, when your emotions become steady, and when your confidence no longer depends on their opinion. Your peace becomes visible even when you never speak about it. Some individuals return because they sense that peace. They hope to benefit from your success, your emotional stability, your wisdom, or your kindness, yet they rarely acknowledge the years of discipline, heartbreak, solitude, and self-reflection it took to become the person standing before them today. They want access to the harvest without respecting the seasons of hard work that produced it. This does not mean every old friend carries bad intentions. Life is more balanced than that. People can mature, hearts can soften, regret can be genuine, but genuine change does not demand immediate trust. It understands patience. Someone who has truly transformed will respect your boundaries instead of feeling offended by them. They will not pressure you to return to the relationship exactly as it was. They will accept that both of you have become different people. The mistake many people make is believing that forgiveness and access are the same thing. They are not. You may forgive someone completely and still choose not to reopen the door they once walked away from. Forgiveness frees your heart. Boundaries protect your future. One heals your spirit while the other protects the life you have worked so hard to build. So when someone from your past suddenly reappears, resist the urge to answer with emotion alone. Watch quietly, listen carefully. Let time reveal what excitement tries to conceal. Because the greatest question is not why they came back, it is why they chose to return only after you became stronger. Once you have learned not to be impressed by someone's sudden return, the next lesson is even more subtle. Not every danger announces itself through harsh words or obvious betrayal. In fact, the people who intend to manipulate you rarely begin with conflict. They begin with kindness. Their voice is warm, their smile is familiar, their compliments seem sincere. Everything on the surface appears harmless. Yet somewhere beneath those pleasant conversations, something inside you becomes strangely unsettled. Many people ignore this feeling because they have been taught to trust appearances more than awareness. They tell themselves, maybe I'm overthinking, or perhaps I'm just being too cautious. But there is a difference between fear and intuition. Fear shouts, intuition whispers. Fear imagines problems that may never happen. Intuition quietly notices patterns that your conscious mind has not yet fully understood. Have you ever met someone who said all the right things, yet after spending time with them, you felt unusually tired? You could not explain it logically. Nothing offensive was said, no argument took place. Yet your mind became restless, your thoughts became heavier, and your inner peace slowly disappeared. Most people dismiss this experience because they cannot measure it. But wisdom is not limited to what can be measured. Human beings communicate far beyond words. We notice inconsistencies in tone, facial expressions, timing, and behavior without consciously realizing it. Your mind is constantly collecting information that your emotions have not yet translated into language. That quiet discomfort is often your inner awareness telling you that something does not align. Observe how some people speak with generosity but behave with subtle selfishness. They praise you, yet somehow every conversation leaves you doubting yourself. They encourage you, but they quietly redirect your attention toward their own needs. They appear supportive, yet they never celebrate your growth without comparing it to themselves. Their words offer comfort, while their actions quietly drain your energy. This is why actions must always outweigh language. Beautiful words require very little effort. Consistent character requires discipline. Anyone can apologize. Anyone can promise change. Anyone can speak about loyalty, respect, or friendship. But over time, behavior reveals what language tries to decorate. Do not rush to expose people or accuse them. There is no need for conflict. Simply become an observer. Watch whether their actions consistently match what they say. Watch how they respond when you establish healthy boundaries. Watch how they react when you cannot immediately give them your attention. A sincere person may feel disappointed, but they will respect your limits. A manipulative person often becomes impatient, offended, or subtly tries to make you feel guilty. One of the greatest mistakes is believing that kindness means ignoring every warning sign. True kindness includes wisdom. Compassion without discernment becomes self-sacrifice. You are not obligated to silence your inner voice simply because someone appears pleasant on the outside. The calmer your own mind becomes, the easier it is to recognize the emotional atmosphere that others bring into your life. Peace becomes your standard. Anything that repeatedly disturbs it deserves careful observation. This does not mean you judge people unfairly. It means you stop explaining away every uncomfortable feeling just to avoid disappointing someone else. When your heart is no longer desperate for acceptance, your perception becomes remarkably clear. You stop chasing convincing words and begin trusting consistent actions. You stop being impressed by charm and start recognizing character. And in that quiet awareness, deception loses much of its power. Always remember this: words can be rehearsed, but genuine character cannot be performed forever. As you become more observant, another pattern begins to reveal itself. At first, the conversation feels natural. They ask how you have been, what has changed, and how life is treating you. These are ordinary questions, and there is nothing wrong with genuine curiosity. Healthy relationships are built on sincere interest in one another. But there is a quiet difference between someone who wants to understand you and someone who wants to study you. This difference is often overlooked because manipulation rarely begins with demands. It begins with information. Before a person can influence your decisions, they first need to understand your habits. Before they can find your weaknesses, they need to know where your emotions still remain unguarded. They listen carefully, not because they value your story, but because they are collecting pieces of it. Notice how some people ask many questions yet reveal very little about themselves. They become deeply interested in your finances, your career, your relationships, your future plans, and even your struggles. They remember every detail you share, but when the conversation turns toward their own life, they become surprisingly vague. The balance is missing. Instead of a conversation, it becomes an investigation. A wise person does not mistake curiosity for trustworthiness. Information is valuable. The more someone knows about your hopes, your fears, your routines, and your dreams, the easier it becomes to influence your emotions. A manipulative individual understands this very well. They know which compliments will affect you. They know which insecurities can be awakened. They know exactly when to appear supportive and when to quietly plant doubt. This is why your private life should never become public property. In today's world, many people feel pressure to explain everything. They believe openness automatically creates closeness, but true closeness is earned, not given away in a single conversation. Silence is often misunderstood. Some believe remaining private means being secretive or unfriendly. That is not true. There is a profound difference between hiding and protecting. A tree does not announce the moment its roots begin to grow. It simply continues growing beneath the surface until its strength becomes undeniable. Your life should follow the same principle. Allow your actions to speak before your plans do. There is another reason to be careful with what you share. Not everyone celebrates your progress with a pure heart. Some people hear about your success and immediately begin comparing their own lives. Envy is a quiet emotion. It rarely introduces itself openly. It disguises itself as advice, concern, or harmless questions. Yet beneath those conversations lies an uncomfortable desire to measure your life against theirs. You do not need to become suspicious of everyone. Living with constant distrust is another form of imprisonment. Instead, practice discernment. Share your life gradually. Allow trust to grow through consistency rather than emotion. Watch how people respond to small pieces of responsibility before handing them larger ones. Trust should expand naturally, just as a strong bridge is built one section at a time. One of the greatest forms of inner strength is learning that you do not owe everyone complete access to your thoughts, your goals, or your personal journey. Some chapters of your life are meant to be lived quietly until they become reality. Speaking too soon invites unnecessary opinions, expectations, and interference. The people who genuinely care about you will never demand unlimited access to your inner world. They will respect your pace. They will understand your boundaries without turning them into an offense. They will appreciate your honesty without insisting that you reveal everything. Your life is like a sacred garden. Not every visitor arrives to admire the flowers. Some arrive to count the fruit, some to take what they did not plant, and some simply to see whether the gate has been left unlocked. Protect your inner world with quiet wisdom, because not everyone who asks questions deserves your answers. There is another sign that is far more dangerous because it does not attack your future directly. Instead, it quietly pulls you back toward your past. This is one of the most overlooked tests of personal growth. You may believe you have changed, that you have healed, that you have left old habits behind, and perhaps you have. But sometimes all it takes is the return of one familiar person for an old version of yourself to begin waking up again. Think about how certain people make you feel the moment they enter your life. Without realizing it, you begin speaking the way you used to speak. You react the way you once reacted. Old frustrations return. Old insecurities become louder, and old emotional patterns slowly take control. Nothing dramatic happens overnight. It is a gradual shift, almost invisible at first. Yet over time, you begin to notice that the peace you worked so hard to build is becoming harder to maintain. This is why growth is not measured by how much time has passed. It is measured by who you become when life presents you with familiar situations. Anyone can feel wise in a quiet environment. The real question is whether you remain wise when the people connected to your old wounds suddenly stand before you again. Many friendships are built on versions of ourselves that no longer exist. Perhaps years ago, you bonded through complaining, gossiping, reckless decisions, or shared unhappiness. At that stage of life, those habits felt normal because everyone around you was living the same way. But healing changes your priorities. You no longer find joy in tearing others down. You no longer seek constant drama to feel alive. You begin protecting your energy because you finally understand how valuable peace truly is. The problem is that not everyone grows at the same pace. Some people remember only the person you used to be. They expect you to laugh at the same jokes, participate in the same unhealthy habits, and tolerate the same disrespect. When you no longer fit that role, they become uncomfortable. Rather than respecting your growth, they try to pull you back into the version of yourself that made them feel familiar. This is not always done with bad intentions. Sometimes people simply resist change because it reminds them of their own unwillingness to grow. Your transformation becomes a mirror, and not everyone enjoys what they see reflected back. Instead of asking themselves to evolve, they unconsciously invite you to become smaller again. Be especially careful when nostalgia begins to sound like wisdom. The mind has a remarkable ability to romanticize the past. It remembers laughter but forgets sleepless nights. It remembers companionship but forgets the emotional exhaustion. It remembers belonging but forgets the compromises that slowly stole your self-respect. Nostalgia is beautiful, but it is incomplete. It tells only half the story. There is a reason reason your life moved forward. There is a reason certain seasons ended. There is a reason you spent countless quiet moments rebuilding your confidence, strengthening your discipline, and learning to value yourself. Do not abandon those lessons simply because an old chapter suddenly feels comfortable again. Comfort is not always a sign that something is right. Sometimes it is simply a sign that something is familiar. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with someone from your past. Do you leave inspired to become a better human being, or do you leave feeling emotionally scattered? Do you feel lighter, more disciplined, more grateful, or do you find yourself slipping into habits you promised never to repeat? The answers to these questions reveal far more than the conversation itself. Your future deserves the strongest version of you, not the version that survived yesterday's battles. If a relationship continually awakens the person you worked so hard to leave behind, then its greatest danger is not what it takes from you today, but what it quietly convinces you to become again. After observing their timing, their words, their curiosity, and the effect they have on the person you have become, there is one final sign that brings everything together. It is not found in what they say or even in what they do. It is found in what begins to happen inside you. Pay attention to the atmosphere a person creates in your life. Every relationship leaves behind an emotional climate. Some people leave you feeling calm, clear, and grounded. Others leave you confused, uncertain, and emotionally exhausted. This difference should never be ignored. Confusion is often mistaken for complexity. People say relationships are complicated, as though constant uncertainty is normal. But while life can certainly be complicated, genuine relationships rarely leave you questioning your worth every day. Healthy people communicate with honesty. They may disagree with you. They may challenge your ideas. They may even disappoint you from time to time. Yet beneath those moments, there is still clarity. You know where you stand because respect remains consistent. Manipulative people operate differently. They understand that a confused mind is easier to influence than a peaceful one. Instead of directly controlling you, they create uncertainty. One day they make you feel important, the next day they become distant. They offer affection, then withdraw it without explanation. They praise your strengths until you begin trusting them, only to quietly criticize the very qualities they once admired. This constant change forces your attention onto them. Instead of living your own life, you begin trying to understand theirs. Notice what happens when your inner balance disappears. You replay conversations over and over again. You analyze every message. You wonder whether you misunderstood something. You search for hidden meanings behind ordinary words. Your mind becomes occupied by questions that never seem to find satisfying answers. While you are trapped in confusion, your energy is no longer available for your own growth. A peaceful mind does not require endless interpretation. It does not constantly wonder whether someone secretly respects or secretly dislikes you. It does not need to earn basic kindness. Peace allows your attention to remain where it belongs, on living your life with purpose. This is why emotional chaos should never become familiar. Many people grow so accustomed to unstable relationships that they mistake intensity for connection. They believe that if emotions are strong enough, the relationship must be meaningful. But intensity and depth are not the same. A storm is intense, yet it destroys. A mountain is quiet, yet it endures. Lasting relationships resemble the mountain far more than the storm. Another subtle sign appears when someone constantly creates urgency. They pressure you to make quick decisions. They insist that everything must happen immediately. They become impatient when you need time to think. Wisdom never fears patience. Only hidden agendas are threatened by careful observation. A person with sincere intentions understands that trust grows slowly. They do not rush the process because they know that what is real becomes stronger with time. You must also recognize how guilt is sometimes used as a tool. The moment you establish a healthy boundary, they begin reminding you of old memories, old favors, or old emotions. They make you feel responsible for protecting the relationship even when they have done little to protect your peace. Gradually, you stop making decisions based on wisdom and begin making them based on guilt. This is the moment your freedom quietly disappears. The strongest response is not anger, accusation, or revenge. It is stillness. Slow your reactions. Observe without rushing to conclusions. Give yourself permission to step back whenever your mind feels unsettled. Time has a remarkable way of exposing what emotions try to hide. Those with sincere hearts become more trustworthy as time passes. Those with hidden motives eventually reveal themselves through inconsistency. Never underestimate the value of inner peace. It is not weakness, It is not passivity. It is the result of countless lessons, painful experiences, and disciplined choices. Anyone who repeatedly replaces that peace with confusion is showing you something far more important than their words ever could. Believe the atmosphere they create because it reveals the truth long before they are willing to speak it. When you begin to see these patterns clearly, something remarkable happens. Fear starts to disappear. You no longer feel the need to constantly question everyone's motives, nor do you become naive enough to believe that every smiling face carries a pure heart. Instead, you discover something much more powerful than fear or blind trust. You discover discernment. Discernment is one of the greatest forms of inner strength because it allows you to remain open without becoming vulnerable to every influence. It teaches you that wisdom is not about building walls around your heart. It is about building strong doors that you choose when to open and when to keep closed. A wall keeps everyone out. A door allows the right people to enter while protecting what is valuable inside. Many people believe they have only two choices: either trust everyone or trust no one. But life is rarely that simple. Both extremes create suffering. Blind trust leads to disappointment, while constant suspicion leads to isolation. Neither path brings peace. The balanced path is to observe patiently, speak honestly, and allow time to reveal character. This is why you should never feel guilty for moving slowly. The modern world encourages immediate decisions, instant friendships, instant forgiveness, instant access. But the deepest things in life have never grown instantly. A tree that stands for centuries begins as a fragile seed. A meaningful friendship is built in exactly the same way. It grows through consistency, shared values, mutual respect, and countless small moments that quietly prove a person's character. If someone becomes offended because you need time to trust them, ask yourself an important question. Why would patience threaten someone with honest intentions? Genuine people understand that trust is precious. They know it cannot be demanded. It must be earned. They do not pressure you because they respect your journey as much as their own. Remember that compassion and boundaries are not enemies. Many people confuse kindness with unlimited availability. They believe that saying no makes them selfish or that protecting their peace makes them unloving. But a river without banks does not nourish the land. It floods everything around it. Boundaries give direction to kindness. They allow love to remain healthy instead of becoming self-destruction. There will always be people who misunderstand your boundaries. Some will call you distant because you no longer explain every decision. Others will call you cold because you refuse to participate in unhealthy patterns. Do not become discouraged by these opinions. People often criticize the very boundaries that prevent them from controlling you. Your responsibility is not to satisfy every expectation. Your responsibility is to live in alignment with wisdom. As your awareness grows, you will notice another beautiful change. You stop chasing relationships simply because they are familiar. Instead, you begin valuing relationships because they are peaceful, respectful, and genuine. Familiarity no longer becomes your standard. Character becomes your standard. Shared history no longer outweighs present reality. What matters is not how long someone has known you, but how they treat the person you are today. Life will continue bringing people into your path. Some will remain for a season.